Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of what we're temporarily calling Ask Me Stuff. I got a wild beard hair that is catching the light. And I know at least one of you, maybe more, said I should look at the camera. I'm doing this on my iPad. So if I look at me, then I'm not looking at the camera, because the camera's way over here. So if I look at the camera, that's just weird. It's just a dot. That's not a focal point for me to look at. So I'm going to look at me, and if I'm looking off like that, it means I'm talking to you particularly. And so alright, so this is episode 2, Friday's Ask Me Stuff. I look a little sleepy. I am a little bit sleepy. And I got up early though, or regular time, 6:30. Was at the office at about 7, which is about normal, but I just feel like I'm a little sleepy. You know, I was in the hotel for 4 days writing on Brother Frankenstein because our internet went out here at the office, and after 4 days of not being really on my diet and not doing the other supplemental things that I do and not doing any workout and sitting in air conditioning, it makes me very, very tired. So, alright, so enough of that. So I've been getting questions, and what I do is I put them in a file when I get them, and so I'm going to go through the questions, at least most of them that I've gotten. They stay in the file, so if I don't get to your question, I most likely will eventually get to it as they move up to the top of the pile. And so we'll go ahead and kick this thing off. First question I got, Michael, during the last episode you recommended the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who is one of my personal heroes and role models. Looking on Amazon, there appear to be multiple editions in both print and Kindle. You don't want any of the Kindle editions because almost all of those are either abridged or they are a study guide. If it says 50 pages or something like that, it's not the whole book. There's actually 5 books in the set, and those 5 books are in 3 volumes. So volume 1 is book 1 and 2. I'm trying to look at that dot. Volume 2 is book 3 and 4, and volume 3 is book 5. Most people only read book 1. It's a mind siege, and so getting through the 660 pages of book 1 is an accomplishment because it is so brutal in its descriptions of the Gulag system and all that. I still think it should be mandatory reading for adults. So I put a link on my Facebook. You can go, I'll actually put it on both my Facebook pages, but you can go to facebook.com/offgrid. That's my personal page, and feel free to like me on that page or follow me, whatever you do on Facebook. But as soon as I get done recording this, I will put it up on facebook.com/Michael Bunker, which is the normal fan page. Alright, so can you recommend a good edition? That's the one. I actually recommend that you get this in hardback, and that you use it because they're fairly cheap. They're used. I don't think there are any new editions. And this is a book you're going to want to keep, and you're going to want to share it with your children when they're old enough to understand it. To me, it's this being Independence Day, it's a mandatory thing for people to understand what it is to be free. And so that's the one I would recommend. Alright, well, thank you for that question. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. Unhappily, I'm right-handed. And although I want to be able to do product placement so that people will pay me large amounts of money, they usually put the logo on the inside. So if I was doing this, I would have to do this. And then you could see that this is my Texas Tech University cup. And I can assure you Texas Tech is not happy about me doing this. They certainly aren't paying me, and they probably would pay me not to show my Texas Tech cup. Or I could do this. This is a cheap cigar. These are cheapies. It's what happens when I have to buy them for myself. for many years, people bought me cigars and sent me cigars because they loved me and wanted me to be happy. And so I didn't have to pay for them. But now that I'm writing fiction mostly, I'm expected to buy my own cigars. And so this is a Quorum. You know, it's hand-rolled, long filler. It's not bad. And so I usually take the label off. There's two reasons you should ever take the label off a cigar. If your cigar is better than the people you're smoking with, you should take the label off because of humility. So if you're smoking a Cohiba or something and everybody else is smoking a Quorum, you should take your label off. And so humility would recommend that. If your cigar is cheaper than everybody else's, then you also take the label off. And that is because you don't want them to feel bad. And hopefully they'll start giving you nicer cigars. Anyway, so I take the label off even when I'm by myself because I try to be humble all the time. And I have had this lighter. These are product placements. I've had this lighter since about maybe 15 or 20 years. It's a Prometheus. My fan might blow it out. I got a fan blowing on me right here because we don't have air conditioning. And when it all fails, you use matches. This is technology. Oh well, forget it. I'll light it later. We'll go on to the next question. All right. Hello, Michael. I have a name suggestion for the show. Q&A from a bunker. Well, that's one. We'll take more suggestions. That's not a bad one. Anyways, here are the questions. Were you raised a plain person? If not, what converted you to the lifestyle? If you converted to the plain lifestyle, is there anything that you missed that you had before you switched? I was not raised plain. I was raised just like all of you. My parents were, when I was born, they were poor, but they became middle class and then upper middle class during my raising, and now would be considered upper middle class. But so I was raised just like you all, and what converted me to the cat scream. Oh, shut up! You're not coming in. I know. So, anyways, we started off with a small farm, me and my wife, and at that time we had one child. We had just had the second. And we started off with a little 5-acre farm outside of Lubbock, Texas, and we started to learn the farming ways, and it took a lot of time, and it was hard. And during that time, we were studying a lot, and we had a determination that we wanted to go off-grid. That wasn't necessarily plain. Off-grid and plain are not synonymous. But we started to move in that direction. We started reading more about the reasons of plain life. During that time, I was doing a lot of theological studies and was studying history of the church and all of these things. And so it was just a gradual move from there. And then in 2000, that was in 97 that we moved out to a farm. And then in 2005, we moved here where we live now, which is a lot more acreage. And we wanted to live in community with people who were like-minded. And we were doing a lot of studies, and we just determined that this was the life for us. And we liked the elements of the society, the social and cultural elements. We liked the theological elements. We liked the community living. We liked the humility. We liked the economic elements of it, not being in debt, raising your own food, being dependent on yourself and on the community and less on the government or the outside world. And so, from there we kind of began to adopt the plain clothing. We're still in that process. I have several actual plain shirts. This does not, but I don't have enough that I can wear one every day, and it's hot and we get sweaty. So, like most plain men's shirts don't have all of these buttons. Sometimes they'll have 3, and then it's a pullover shirt, and they generally don't have a pocket. But all of my shirts, you'll notice, don't have a collar. and there's reasons behind all of that. And suspenders usually are handmade, so you wouldn't get these shiny bangles on. But I have real suspenders that go on real Amish broadfall pants, but I'm not rich enough yet to have a full complement of clothing, so we dress as plain as we can. Is there anything that you miss? I think that's always true. I think you always miss something, and that's part of the point. There are things that are very comfortable, that are helpful, or that make life easier, that we believe may not be good for you. And so it's not that we're against technology, but we determine bit by bit what pieces of technology we want to adopt. And so, yeah, I miss air conditioning. I just spent 4 days in it, but I think it makes you weaker mentally and several other ways. I think health-wise it makes you, living in a perpetually 72-degree environment is not the way we were made, and it makes us dependent. And so you hear people complaining when it's 77 and when it's 68, So there are things I miss. I'm a little bit exceptional in that I live off-grid up there, but here I'm in my office. I don't have air conditioning, I don't have flush toilets, and I don't have a lot of the things that you all have. But I have a fan, and I have a record player that's USB that runs off my laptop, so I play records. And I've got things that are not, traditionally found in, but a lot of plane. I've said in the last show, a lot of plane people work in factories, and they to make use of all types of technology. But yeah, I miss a lot of it. I miss, once in a while wearing a very expensive suit with a silk tie, and I don't miss shaving, but I do miss being able to go into town and not have somebody, either gawking or commenting about my beard. I love the beard, and I feel comfortable with it. I don't even realize I have it until like right now I'm looking at it. But somebody always says something, or they're gawking at you or something. And, I like to be incognito when I go to town. So, wearing a baseball cap and what I call the uniform of the day, that's something that you miss, but it's just something that's not part of our life. And so I could go down the list. I miss being able to walk over to a sink and wash my hands instead of using, other methods. I miss, just having things like that. But those things, there's a cost involved with all of that. There's a cost involved with grid electricity and power and all that kind of stuff. Not just monetary costs, but there's other costs. And the end of that is dependency, which is what we're against. We're against dependency. And so we'd rather be dependent on one another and on God's graces for us and those things, and not dependent on systems that are unreliable. Thank you for that question. All right, of the books that you've written, what is your favorite? I know it's probably like asking you to pick a favorite child. Not really. Osage 2 Diamonds is my favorite book, which almost none of you have read. It's the best book that I've written. It's to me, it's not only a fascinating story, but it's Vonnegut fanfic. It's written in the world of Cat's Cradle. You don't have to have read Cat's Cradle. In fact, it's not necessary at all. But because it was in Kindle Worlds, because they don't do paperback and they don't sell it overseas, and because it's a Vonnegut story style, then a lot of people haven't read it, or they feel like it's not for them. But I think if people would try it, they would absolutely love it. The people who have read it have loved it. But it's the best book that I've written in fiction. It's fun, it's funny, and it's just a good book. The next question's, what book did you find the hardest to write? That's tougher. That's tougher. I do a lot of research, and so research can be tough. I hear you, Kat. That's just the way life is. Wick was very difficult because it was already in the world of The Last Pilgrims. I was co-writing it with another author, which adds its own level of difficulties. It was a lot more trying to harmonize it with events that happened 20 years later. That was difficult. There's always some difficulties. I had a real difficult time starting Brother Frankenstein, and that's the one I'm writing right now that I hope to have the first episode finished at the end of this month. That it not only involves autism, which it's a Amish robot Frankenstein story. It's actually somewhat literary, so it's not as cutesy as it might sound. But without getting too much into the story, autism plays a major part in the story, and basically you can think of it as Rain Man meets the Hulk meets Transformers meets Witness. That's what it is. Anyways, it has difficulties at the beginning. I don't know anything about autism, nothing, and so I'm actually working with another writer and editor named Bob Crosley, who's helping me tremendously with his insight into autism and helping me make the characters correct and giving me a lot of background information. I've read several books online, and I'm trying to make it as real as possible. But those of you who know me know I research very deeply into every topic, location, and everything that I write about. And so it took me a while to get started, and then I had to do some restarts, but now it's starting to flow. I finished chapter 5 the other day. All right, have you ever given up on a book and not completed it? Or are there any you gave up on for a while but finally finished? If so, what motivated you to finish it? Yeah, I have several that I've started that I haven't finished. I usually would give up on one if it just wasn't working for me at the time. And you never know when that inspiration is going to come back, so it's just not the time for that book. You know, I started on Pennsylvania in 2013, early in the year. Wrote the first part, and then put it out there and just waited to see if it would catch on. And then I was finally motivated to finish it by the fact that people were reading it and loving it. And so that completed novel, Pennsylvania, by the way, which is 99 cents on Monday. 99 cents. You need to let everybody know. And I'll talk more about it at the end of the program, but you need to gift it to people because we want to get as many of them out there as possible. So the motivation can be anything, but I've got probably 3 or 4 books that are completely unfinished. And someday, when the time comes, I will finish them, Lord willing. Last question from this one. Do you write every day? Do you set a word goal that you want to write when you sit down to write? The second part of that I do. I do set down a word goal. I don't always meet it, and sometimes I far exceed it. So I may say I'm going to do 2,500 words, and I might do 10,000. I don't write every day. I should write every day, but I don't. And I know that people say you should, but I write in bursts of speed. I really have to be motivated, and sometimes I'm just not motivated, and I don't feel like it, and I don't want to. People say, oh, you should, and I'm not saying that voice because they're wrong. I'm just saying, everybody says you should just write anyway and all this, but I can't do it. If I'm not motivated, sometimes I take a break off for weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, and then I'll get back in it, and I could put out a book in a month. So, a lot of it has to do, right now I've actually been overwhelmed with a lot of business and fan interaction, and a lot of that's really kind of taxing. But it's fun, and I'm having fun doing it. So, no, I don't write every day, and I do try to have a goal. Today I'm going to try to do some rewriting, and then I'm going to try to advance by about 2,000 words today. But the rewriting could take a lot longer, and it's going to expand it out. So we'll see where I end up. Working on Brother Frankenstein again today. All right, well, thank you, and I've got a few more that I want to get to. Michael, what made you write your first novel? Were you always interested in writing, or did you just do it one day? Do you own a computer? Did you own a computer before you started writing? If so, why? I wrote my first novel when I was about 22, maybe 22, and it was a full 370-page novel. I wrote it out longhand, and then when I had a chapter done, I typed it on an old Selectric typewriter. We didn't have computers so much then. This was around, there were computers. This was probably 91, 90? No, 90. 1990. So, the home computer, I had a home computer at my parents' house in 1985. We had a TRS-80. But I personally did not own a computer until 1993. So in 91, and where I worked, I didn't work on a computer. And so I didn't have access to one. I had access to a typewriter because I was working in law enforcement at that time. And so I would, I worked a midnight shift, and I I did in-processing of people that had been arrested, and I worked on a typewriter. So when there was no one to in-process, I would write. And mostly I wrote on yellow pads, and then I would transcribe it into the typing. And then I wrote another book after that, which was, and I never did submit that book anywhere. I may not even have it. I may have it somewhere in storage. But I wrote another book a year or two later, probably 94, 93. Yeah, it was when my daughter, my oldest daughter, was born in 93. So I wrote another short novel in 93, pretty much the same way. I think I might have typed it into the computer and printed it out. And then I wrote nonfiction from 94 to 2013. No, 2011. 2011 was when I wrote my first real novel as an adult that knows what I'm doing, and it wasn't that good. The Last Pilgrims was 2011. It's a great story, but it's going to be rewritten. I do recommend people read it, though, because it's a good story. And it's also the sequel to Wick, which came later. All right, thanks for the question. Michael, your children are intelligent and well-rounded. Thank you. I get this a lot. In fact, I got this question 3 times, and I only kept one. I would like to know about your children's schooling. All right. Well, all of our children were homeschooled. My wife was the teacher. But we use a very, very unique method of teaching. We don't, although my wife did cover the basics, mathematics, and all of these things, up through, and we only go up through 8th grade. Our main influence or impetus is on self-education. I'm self-educated. Although I went to college and went to high school, I learned nothing. And I did not start actually learning anything until I educated myself. And I did so by reading everything and anything I could find, and anything that interested me. And so what we try to do is encourage their interest, and then we teach them how to learn. And so everything is accessible, everything is available. And this is my opinion, there's absolutely no reason to go to university unless you're going to be a engineer or a doctor. There's just and I know people say you did it because you need a job, but that's bull. Anything you want to know, you can find out. It's all available online. There are courses. You can take college courses for free online. And so, we teach our children all the time. And so this is very unique. We don't rely on anybody. We don't even rely on ourselves. We don't rely on what we tell them. We teach them how to be curious and how to find out and how to doubt the information that they find out online, and how to double check things and how to look in old books. And I keep about, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I keep voluminous numbers of books that are full, and a lot of old encyclopedias, because information changes through time. And that's probably a horrible picture, but I have over 3,000 books in my library, probably closer to 4,000 now. And every time I can find an old set of encyclopedias, old books on literature. I've got this. Let's see if I can do this. This whole series, the Will Durant series on history, and my children are encouraged to seek things out and to learn on their own and to not take anybody's word for stuff. We don't bow at the altar of science. We don't bow at the altar of any liberal or conservative thing. What we do is try to find out. And to me, the best way to find out what was really happening historically or anything else is to find books written by people at that time who talk about their life or talk about events. So if you want to find out about the civil rights, or if you want to find out about Napoleon, or if you want to find out about the Holocaust, or you want anything, the best thing you do is find little-known contemporary fiction and nonfiction. Not the big ones that everybody reads, but try to find books that are written by people who lived through that time and talked about it. And you can glean a lot from stuff like that. And so we encourage the children to read. And you can learn a lot through fiction about what real life is like. Even today, if you're reading my stuff, you can find out a lot about how life is today. And so that's one of the reasons. But we also, if we show them a movie, or if we go to town, we stop. My children have never watched a TV show or a movie all the way through that I was there. We have a pause button and we stop it, and I'll tell them, okay, let me tell you what's happening here. Let me tell you the historical context of this. Let me tell you what they just said and why it's not true and why you should go look it up. And so they're constantly being taught how to think, not what to think, but how to think, and that does make them very well-rounded and very intelligent, and they speak well. They're very well socialized, regardless of what people who are anti-homeschooling say, and we're very well pleased with them. Thank you for the question. All right, I think that's it for the show. I wanted to light my cigar, but my lighter wouldn't. That's just good. Just good entertainment right there. All right, so send in your questions. mbunker@michaelbunker.com. Make sure you check out my blog, michaelbunker.com. Send me your items that you want me to advertise, and some wampum to go with it. Send me cigars to smoke. Don't forget, Monday, July 7th, 2014. I am doing my absolute best to make Pennsylvania a national bestseller on the Amazon Top 100 list, and I need your help. So please go to my blog, michaelbunker.com, and read what I need you to do, and please help me out. Maybe pick 10 or 20 people. It's only 99 cents. 99 cents is all. Pick 5 or 10 or 20 people and give them the book. A couple of people have already done this online. It would be awesome to have a viral thing where everybody just put on your Facebook, put on your email list or whatever to your friends and say, listen, if you want this book, the first 10 people, the first 20 people, the first 5 people that tell me they want this book, who have an email address and can read a Kindle. Anybody can read a Kindle, by the way, because you can send them and they can read them on their laptop. That you'll send them the book. And it's only 99 cents. It's very easy to gift it. Instead of pushing buy now, right below it, it says gift this book. So, anyways, it's only 27 minutes, and I know Kevin G. Summers said he wanted them under 15, but he's not the boss of me. At least not yet. All right, y'all. Have a good week, and I'll see you when I see you.